Part 40. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 391. Chapter 391. Are you proud? You are just jealous. Lisa ignored his words. In my eyes, all the perfumers in China are nothing, only Su Yun is the best. Lisa, this is a bit too much. There are still some top perfumers in China, but her words have offended countless people. Su. In my heart anyway, Lisa said unconvincedly, pulling her sleeve. As expected, He Jin sneered twice. Is Su Yun the only perfumer in China? Miss Lisa, I'm afraid even Mr. Will won't agree with what you said. If it weren't for his father's sake, he would have taught her a lesson long ago. There is no point in arguing here. He Jin, I do not have what you call a professional qualification certificate, and I will not take the exam. Su Yun straightened her spine and said word by word, fragrance making is my hobby and something I am willing to do, and no one can stop me. Whether I have the qualifications or not is not up to you. I put my words here, whoever dares to touch the studio will be torn apart by me. Her eyes were particularly sharp, unlike her usual calm demeanor. When she said this, her aura was so strong that she seemed to be a different person. Lisa on the side was shocked. You. He didn't expect her to be so tough. He Jin was so angry that he couldn't speak. After staring at her for a few seconds, he suddenly seemed to remember something and sneered, do you think you are really that powerful? Did you mix a few perfumes that sell well and feel that you are at the top level? Su Yun, don't forget your dark history in the circle of perfumers. You are called the perfumer without a nose. You can be said to be the first person. These words contained full of malice. Su Yun didn't expect that he would bring up the old things from 800 years ago again, and she was slightly startled. Seeing that she was distracted, He Jin felt that he had touched her sore spot and sneered and took a step forward. It's hard to say whether you are a genius perfumer in this circle, but you are the most troubled perfumer in this circle. That must be right. Su Yun, you must know that a person is not alone in this world and must integrate into this group. Since you rejected Mr. Will and wanted to stay in China for development, you should abide by domestic rules. The association is open to you. You don't want a gate, this is not forced on you, but you must accept the management of the association. Faced with his teasing and threats, Su Yun did not take a step back. Instead, she raised her head and looked at him without evading. You are right, someone once called me a perfumer without a nose. But if I remember correctly, it was me, a perfumer without a nose, who beat you to win the international fragrance competition. What, is Mr. He's nose just a decoration? It's not as useful as a noseless person like me. She had no intention of attacking her personally, but since others wanted to attack her, she had no choice but to treat him the same way and let him bring humiliation to himself. Ha ha ha. Lisa has the most straightforward personality. When she heard her say this, she couldn't help but burst out laughing. Lisa's ridicule made He Jin blush even more, feeling ashamed and embarrassed. It was that competition that the association recommended him to. He was young, talented, and extremely talented in this area. He thought he was a sure winner, but he didn't expect to come back with a second-place finish. Of course, under normal circumstances, second place is considered a good ranking, but the first place is also from China, and she is still unknown. Not to mention that she is not from the Fragrance Industry Association, even this name is almost have not heard. From then on, he kept this name in his heart. Firstly, I want to compete with each other, and secondly, I want to bring such people into the association. When the time comes, I want to win the honor, which is half of the honor of the association. I didn't expect that the gentle and soft-looking little girl would be so difficult to deal with. Even in the imperial capital, she couldn't be trapped. Behind her, there is Si Yao, and the entire Huanya group will indeed have to put some effort into dealing with her. It's just a competition. Are you very proud of it? he gritted his teeth and said this, trying his best to save his face. There's really nothing to be proud of for winning against you, Su-yoon said disapprovingly. Mr. He, I would also like to advise you, as a perfumer, don't have such a narrow vision. Someone like me doesn't even have a professional qualification certificate. As a little girl, why don't you take a longer view and look at the outside world? Aren't the top international perfumers from our country just to restrain and punish our own people? Hee-jin was completely speechless. Before meeting her, his goal was indeed to go global and become the world's top perfumer. However, after losing to her, his unwillingness became a thorn in his heart, and he unknowingly, to compete with her. What a sharp mouth, he snorted coldly, the smile on his face completely disappeared, and his expression darkened. Su-yoon, it will not be good for you if you continue to be so stubborn. After speaking, he glanced at the yard again. This matter won't just be forgotten. With these words, he left. Go, 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 Lisa waved her hand, as if chasing away something unlucky. Su, you really impress me. Was that you just now? I don't even dare to recognize you. My aura is full, she said with emotion. If he hadn't gone too far, I wouldn't have cared about him for her. She just wanted to concentrate on doing what she liked, but there were always people who were making things difficult for her, digging holes and blocking roadblocks for her. In this case, we can only throw those who dug the pit into the pit, and those who blocked the roadblocks will tear down the roadblocks with others. Let me tell you, if your Chinese country insists on making things difficult for you like this, you might as well go to France with me and go to my dad's studio. He actually admires you. Su-yoon shook her head. I never thought about leaving here. Although there are some unreasonable things, it will not be the reason for me to leave. I want to stay here and make classic styles that can be passed down for hundreds of years. Lisa didn't understand her obsession, but listening to her words made her blood boil. Su, although I don't understand much, I support you. And I believe that you can definitely make that kind of perfume. She put her arm on Su-yoon's shoulder and encouraged her. By the way, that's my business. Did you agree? This girl is really good at hitting snakes on the pole. Su-yoon smiled and said, okay, I will accept your request. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 392. Chapter 392. Let's get married. In the evening, Su-yoon packed her things and came out of the studio, and saw Yao's car parked outside. Didn't you say, don't come to pick me up? She was very helpless. She obviously drove here by herself, but now that he came to pick her up, she didn't have to drive her car back. Today is a bit freer, I have time. He stood leaning there, the golden light of the setting sun shone on him, as if he was plated with a layer of gold, and it looked like he was glowing. Seeing her approaching, he straightened up and opened the door of the passenger seat, watched her sit in, then closed the door and walked around to the driver's seat. Su-feng isn't here again. It seems that he has been seen less frequently recently, and Yao has been driving more often. Isn't it good to live in a world of two, he said while fastening his seat belt. Besides, if we live in a world of two, we have to give him some time to live in his own world of two. When he said this, Su-yoon thought of Su-feng and Yan and couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, I really didn't expect him to get together with Arian. Su-feng is so boring, and Arian is such a talkative. It's really interesting to think about the scene of the two of them together. What about us? Yao glanced at her. Of course, he didn't want to wait for her answer. He smiled and focused on driving. The car was very stable, and she was quite tired after spending a day in the studio. She leaned against the car window and almost fell asleep. Just as she was dozing off, she heard him say from the side, I heard, is the person named he here today? Huh, she came to her senses and responded, here he is, and then he is gone. Are you making things difficult for me? he asked casually, staring ahead, as if chatting. Soo-yoon shook her head. It's not difficult. At his level, it's really not difficult, it's just harsh words at best, and she can also sense that the so-called professional qualification certificate is just an excuse. This is the association using this as an excuse. Press her. After all, it is intolerable for a small perfumer to be so disrespectful that he refuses to join the association even after being invited by it, and even dares to challenge the entire association. Although the He family is quite powerful in the imperial capital, this is Zhongcheng, and it's not his turn to dictate. If you don't want to take the qualification certificate, don't take it. The old guys in the association are used to being comfortable and have nothing to do. I have to find something to blame. Those qualification certificates are all made by themselves, and they really treat themselves like an onion, he sneered lightly, with a look of disdain on his face. Heh, Soo-yoon laughed out loud. Why are you laughing? He turned to look at her, showing displeasure. Am I right? No, it's just that I didn't expect you to use bad words. After a pause, she continued, when he came in, Lisa was there, and she also said some certificate. I really didn't expect that the two of them had a tacit understanding in this regard. Really, Yao also laughed along with her. This little foreign girl can still curse people like this. The mention of Lisa reminded him of another thing. By the way, didn't you say that the little girl wanted to make a customized perfume for you? Did you accept it? Took it, nodding, Soo-yoon said, but before that, I still have something to deal with. A little thing. The car was not going to Yujing-Houding. Soo-yoon was about to fall asleep at the front, and she didn't pay attention when chatting with him later. When she came to her senses, the car had already arrived at the largest commercial center in Zhongcheng. Is there another event? This was her first reaction. Can't we just go shopping? He glanced at her and drove the car into the underground garage. It's not that I can't, but I really haven't really gone shopping with him much. After we got together, at first it was to avoid people's attention. Later, either he was busy or she was busy, so it was always difficult to have common interactions. Suddenly want to take her shopping? After the car stopped and turned off, he did not get out of the car in a hurry. Instead, he turned to look at her and said seriously, there is something I want to discuss with you. What? He lowered his head and pondered for a moment, then raised his head and said, get married. Soo-yoon blinked, not realizing what he meant for a moment. Silly, haven't we already received the certificate? I'm not talking about that, I'm talking about having a wedding. The kind that will be huge, grand, and sensational in the whole city. Let everyone know that you are my wife, my Yao's wife. Hold on. One of her hands, he said seriously. It was precisely because of his seriousness that Soo-yoon was very moved. Why? Why do you think so suddenly? Neither of them paid much attention to this matter before, it was just a formality anyway, but he suddenly mentioned why. Your pregnancy has made me think a lot. She was about to say that she was not pregnant, but it was a mistake that made her blush just by mentioning it. But he interrupted her, I know you're not pregnant, but it doesn't matter whether you're pregnant or not now. This just reminded me. I haven't given you a formal wedding for so long. If one day I'm really pregnant, and I don't want you to have to go through such hard work with a bulging belly. When he spoke, Soo-yoon listened quietly, calmly, and gently. When he stopped, she still didn't speak, which made Yao not sure what she was thinking. Do you think you're not ready yet? Soo-yoon shook her head and said with a smile, okay, let's get married. Really, he was surprised and couldn't hide the joy in his eyes. He didn't expect it to go so smoothly. Even though he had already received the certificate and were already a de facto couple, at this moment, he felt as if he had successfully proposed a proposal, as if he had finally nodded in agreement with the girl he had liked for a long time. I didn't care before, but now I kind of understand why a wedding is necessary and why it should be such a formality. You deeply like someone, love someone, and just want to tell the whole world that she is your lover and your person. I thought about it, wearing a wedding dress with a bulging belly really doesn't look good. She looked serious and joked with a smile. Let's go then. He immediately opened the car door and got out of the car, moving swiftly. Where, going, she really couldn't keep up with his rhythm. First she talked about shopping, and before she even went shopping, she talked about getting married. After talking about getting married, she was going to go shopping again? How can you get married without a wedding ring or wedding dress? It's better to choose a day than to hit it go buy it now. Soo-yoon. Inexplicably, she felt like she had been tricked. Holding his hand and looking at his back, Soo-yoon pouted and said, "Si-yao. Did you plan this a long time ago? When talking about shopping and discussing, you just come prepared." End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 393. Chapter 393. It's not bad to eat soft rice. Si-yao took her to choose a diamond ring. It seemed that it had been arranged in advance. When she entered the door, she was led to the VIP room by the shopping guide. Then two shopping guides came in quickly with two trays with dozens of diamond rings on them. Let Mr. Si and Mrs. Si choose. Glancing at him, Soo-yoon felt dazzled by the diamonds on it. Under the light, those stones shone brightly, and each one was very shiny. "You choose," he said. "I just asked them to reserve the latest and most distinctive ones, and I didn't make the decision for you." Glancing at the trays, it can be said that most of the diamond rings have similar shapes. Except for some differences in the size of the diamonds, the shapes are generally not much different. MRSC's fingers are thin and slender, and her skin is very white. She will look good wearing this pink diamond squatting in front of them, the shopping guide proactively recommended. This pink diamond is this year's new model, and the workmanship and polish are very particular, and the purity is also very high, you see. As they spoke, they took out their professional tools to take a picture of it for her to see. Soo-yoon glanced at it and saw that the pink diamond was very big, so big that it looked bright. She didn't move. Seeing this, another shopping guide immediately understood that she didn't like it, so he picked up the other ring at hand. "Maybe this one is also very good for a single heart." The shape is a heart, which symbolizes Mr. C's love for your love also represents the only one. And this diamond is. Waving her hand, Soo-yoon's fingers were suspended above the tray, paused, and then lowered her hand. "This is it. A diamond ring that doesn't look very big. What's more special is that a circle of small diamonds surrounds the middle diamond, like stars over the moon. At first glance, the middle diamond is particularly large, especially from a distance. It will appear very bright. But, after all, the main diamond is not very large, so in terms of price, it is not as expensive as what the two shopping guide ladies just recommended." This. The two shopping guides looked at each other, and it was obvious that they were a little disappointed. You must know that Si-yao is a big customer, and you may not see such a big customer in a few years. I originally thought that I would definitely be able to place a big order, but I didn't expect to choose such a model. Soo-yoon has already put the ring on her finger. How is it? Turn your hand over to show it to him. Si-yao took a look and nodded. It looks good. She looks good in anything she wears, except. But sometimes the drill is a little too small. Do you want to choose a larger one? Hearing what he said, the shopping guide's eyes lit up, and she looked at Soo-yoon with hope, wishing she could choose more styles. But she shook her head. "No, this one is pretty good. It looks big and not eye-catching." The diamond ring is more important to show than it actually is. I usually do experiments, but I don't have much use for it. I just leave it here mostly. Even if you keep it, it can maintain its value. The larger the weight, the greater the collection value, the shopping guide lady on the side said hurriedly. There are still people who think diamonds are too big. To be honest, those who come here to buy diamond rings, apart from ordinary people with little money, are all rich ladies who don't choose big ones. This MRSSI is really special. What do I want to do to preserve its value? Soo-yoon laughed. Although I don't wear it very much, it is a wedding diamond ring after all. Even if it preserves its value, can I still sell it? If I don't plan to sell it, the significance of its appreciation and preservation is it's not big, just a stone. No one had ever said such a thing before. The two of them were at a loss for words and didn't know what to say. Seeing them looking at each other in confusion and a little disappointed, Soo-yoon knew that they originally wanted to make a big purchase, so she smiled and said, "This is the diamond ring. Are there any matching rings for me and Mr. Si to choose?" "Yes, there." After coming back to their senses, the two of them quickly stood up and went to pick up the food. "Are you really not considering buying a bigger one?" When she just spoke, Si kept silent and fully respected her decision. It wasn't until the two people left that he raised his hand and gently brushed up the hair from her ear. "They are right. The bigger the diamond, the more valuable it is. Wouldn't it be better to buy two and keep them for you to play with?" She rolled her eyes at him, knowing that he was mostly joking, so she couldn't help complaining, "Why do I want to keep this thing? I want to store it, and I also store spices. Besides keeping it, what other functions can this thing have?" "Yes," Si approached her mysteriously and said with a smile on his lips, "if your husband and I go bankrupt one day, I can at least exchange some money to make your life more comfortable." Hiss. Before he could finish his words, he was slapped by her. Soo-yoon was completely speechless at him. This kind of thing was easy to joke about. "Don't say there won't be such a day. Even if there is such a day, the money I earn from mixing incense will be enough to support you and me." What a joke. I'm afraid most people don't know how many industries Huanya has. If Huanya goes bankrupt, half of China's economy will be impacted. But then again, she wasn't just talking casually. If Siya really ran out of money, she could support them both with her own ability. Seeing her serious look, Siya couldn't help laughing and leaned on her shoulder. "Then I don't want to eat soft rice. That's not bad. I'm older and have bad teeth, so eating soft rice is really a good idea." Choice. Just as the two shopping guide ladies had already changed their rings and came in, when they saw this scene, they couldn't help but lower their heads and couldn't hide their smiles. However, in front of others, he did not shy away from it at all. He sat up straight again and said, "You choose." "I have chosen the diamond ring." "You can choose the matching ring." Soo-yoon put her chin on her hand and looked at him and said, "The meaning of the matching ring is much greater to me than the diamond ring. You can get it? Choose it carefully." The diamond ring was worn on display on the wedding day. The media might report it and compare it with the diamond rings of other rich ladies. It was just like this, so she was not very interested in the diamond ring. Too many external things endow it, covering up its own value and significance. But the two precepts are different. One for each person, one pair for each other, holding the child's hand, and growing old together with the child. It feels wonderful to think of two people holding hands with the same pair of rings on their fingers. Yao smiled and listened to her words and looked at the rows of rings attentively. At first glance, the difference is probably not that big. Each of the same rings is set with diamonds, but the diamonds are not as big as the individual diamond rings, and the carvings on the finger rings are different. After a quick glance, Yao reached out and took out the two rings. "Is this one?" Looking at his hand, there was a small diamond in the two rings, and the circle around the finger was two frosted plain circles, which looked simple and elegant. There is not so much entanglement and complexity, just like the simplicity and purity between you and me. Si Yao took her hand and said while putting the ring on her finger. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 394. Chapter 394. Didn't you already know that? Suyun looked down at the ring on her finger. It was magical. Just a small circle encircled your finger and seemed to encircle your heart. Gently stroking the ring with her fingers, she raised her head and chuckled, "I like it." Soon they were all selected, and the two of them got up and went out. The shopping guide lady had already taken Si Yao's card to check out. Si Yao answered the phone and was talking about something, so she walked out first. There were other people in the store who were also choosing jewelry. "Mom, I think this one is just fine. It doesn't have to be jade, diamond is also good." "What do you young people know? Gold is valuable but jade is priceless. No matter how expensive this diamond is, how can it be compared with jade?" The old man's voice was obviously unhappy. It's not that Suyun wanted to notice, the main reason was that what he said was a bit too abrupt. This jewelry store only sells diamonds. Standing in a diamond store and shouting that diamonds are not as good as jade, let the store clerks think what they think and the people who come here to buy diamonds think. Okay, okay, you like jade, but there is no suitable one. Since there is no suitable one, why not choose here first to see if there is anything you like? Chinjai will be engaged next month, so you have to dress up decently, right? Suyun looked in the direction of the conversation and saw a rich old lady sitting at the counter with a look of displeasure on her face. The middle-aged woman standing next to her looked well maintained, but the wrinkles at the corners of her eyes and the shallow nasolabial folds on her face cannot conceal her age. "Look at this one and this one, they are both pretty good, they suit your temperament very well," the shopping guide quickly recommended. "They are all vulgar," the old lady snorted and was obviously very dissatisfied. "Do you have any pink diamonds or blue diamonds? They have to be different from others, take them out and show them to me." "Yes, there are some, but the prices are relatively. Generally, if the price is too expensive, the shopping guide will tactfully remind you. First of all, it is risky to take such expensive things and it will not be displayed easily. Secondly, I am afraid that others will not be able to afford it. It will be even more embarrassing if they see that they cannot afford it. Of course, this kind of words can sometimes easily offend people, especially those with extremely strong self-esteem, who will feel insulted, like right now." "What do you mean? What's wrong with the price?" "I can't afford it, old lady." She raised her voice and immediately attracted the attention of others, who looked in her direction. "That is to say, how can you talk? Do you know who my mother is?" The middle-aged woman was also very unhappy. "We are from the Si family, Huanya group, do you know?" Opening her eyes, Suyun wondered if she had heard wrongly. Si family? Huanya group? Could it be that there is someone with the same name? Yes, 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 I said something wrong, I'll get it for you." After apologizing repeatedly, the shopping guide hurriedly went to get the expensive diamond jewelry. The proud mother and daughter raised their heads and glanced around the store proudly. However, they stopped when their eyes collided with Suyun's. I don't know if it was an illusion, but Suyun felt that they seemed to know her, but their eyes were somewhat evil. "Okay, let's go." Si Yao just finished answering the phone and came out. After paying the money and picking up the things, he said to her, but he saw her looking straight ahead, not knowing what she was looking at. "What's wrong?" he asked, turning his head to follow her line of sight, his eyes fixed. "Wait for me," Si Yao said, and then walked straight in the direction of the two women, grandma, aunt. Yet after snorting, the old lady looked past him and looked directly at Suyun behind him. "Why, don't you introduce me to grandma?" Wouldn't it be natural for Grandma to know me when we get married? After a pause, he continued, besides, Grandma has great powers, so why do I need to introduce you to her? Don't you already know that? You. The flesh on MRSC's face trembled, and her eyes became fierce. Suyun. Although I didn't hear what they said, I could tell that after Si Yao finished speaking, the old lady's eyes became fierce. It could be felt from her that she was repulsive and even disliked her. Ayo, why are you talking to Grandma? Grandma is also concerned about you. Si Kong Rong on the side persuaded calmly, besides, are you getting married? When will it happen? Has the wedding date been set? Why haven't I heard you mention it? Si Yao looked at her, smiled and said, Auntie is so concerned about my marriage. Does she plan to give you a generous gift? The smile on his face froze, and Si Kong Rong added, that's natural. My nephew is getting married, so of course the aunt will give generous gifts. But he turned his head and looked at Suyun behind him. He was blocking her very tightly, and he deliberately stood in a position just right to block the person. Why, is this how you protect yourself? You are about to get married, but you haven't introduced the bride to me and your grandma. Isn't this too disrespectful of treating us as a family? She said half-jokingly, I heard that her name is Suyun. Really? Mr. Chu's granddaughter. Auntie, doesn't she know everything? What else do you need to introduce? Do you want me to tell you how I met her and how we fall in love on weekdays? Si Kong Rong, Ayo. Grandma rarely goes out, so I won't disturb your interest in choosing diamonds, but since we met by chance, my grandson reminds you that at the wedding, you must not forget to give your grandson-in-law a meeting gift. MRSSI put one hand on the chair and gripped the armrest tightly with her fingers, her teeth wanting to bite into pieces. The loose flesh on his face was shaking uncontrollably, and it was obvious that he was holding back his anger. Si Yao seemed not to notice, turned around and left, put his arms around Suyun's waist, straightened his back and left the diamond shop. Suyun didn't know what was said or what happened between them, but what was certain was that it was definitely unpleasant. He hasn't spoken since leaving the diamond shop, and his hand around her waist has never been let go, holding it tightly. It's not so much that he's holding her waist, but holding it tightly, as if seeking to drown man in a piece of driftwood. Feeling the waves of his emotions, Suyun said nothing and let him hold her waist, returning to the car in the garage and stopping. Si Yao let go of his hand and unlocked the car. Si Yao's face tensed up, and he looked different from usual. Suyun has seen him look serious before, and she has also seen him get angry, but it seems like this is the first time she has seen him seem to have anger surging in his chest but holding it back. Hand opened the door and got in the car, she also got into the passenger seat. He didn't say anything, so she stayed with him. The car didn't start, and the two of them just sat in the car in deathly silence. End of this chapter. Si Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 395. Chapter 395. I'm definitely on your side. After a while, Suyun raised her hand and gently covered the back of his hand, as if to give him some warmth. Turning to look at her, Si Yao shook his head, I'm fine. I know you're fine, I just wanted to hold your hand, she chuckled, a bit coquettishly. Hooking her hand instead, Si Yao's impetuous heart felt much smoother. He leaned his head on the headrest and remained silent for a while before saying, don't worry, I won't let them hurt you. Them, Suyun thought for a moment, and soon realized who the they he meant was referring to. She nodded and said, I believe it. She didn't know much about the Si family. To be precise, even the outside world and the media did not report very detailed reports on the Si family. Such a large family seemed to be shrouded in something, airtight, and there was no trace of it outside. Nothing can be found. What Suyun knows is that Si Yao ranks fourth among his brothers. This is why Su Jianran called him fourth brother before. But although he ranks fourth, he is also the only one, because those before him brother, they are all dead. It is not very clear exactly how he died, but he was the only one who stayed. It is said that he was not in good health before, but later he was slowly healed by unknown miracle doctors, and then he inherited the family business and carried it forward until now. But even if you don't know much about it, just looking at his attitude towards grandma and aunt today, you know that their family is not so harmonious. The Chu family is relatively harmonious because their grandfather is in charge, but there is also a figure like Chu Zinggao, not to mention other wealthy and aristocratic families, such as the Si family. After the wealthy and aristocratic, after the family business is large, there are naturally various interests and disputes. With the competition of interests, all kinds of intimacy comes out. The people's hearts are the simplest and most complicated. But just now I heard them say that someone is getting engaged. Will that coincide with their wedding date? They should be talking about Si Chenjai, Si Yao said calmly. Yes, yes, Su Yun nodded repeatedly, it seems to be that name. It's you. I haven't heard that he has any other brothers and sisters. Who is this Si Chenjai? In terms of seniority, he is my uncle. He pinched the bridge of his nose and said, he is not a few years older than me. After being reminded like this, Su Yun remembered that there was such a person in the Si family. It was said that he was MRSC's son. When the child was more than 10 years old, MRSSI, who was Si Yao's grandfather, passed away. The old lady doted on this son more and more, doting more than other sons and daughters, even Si Yao, her grandson. She had to take it with her wherever she went. Later, when her children grew up and they really didn't listen to her, they couldn't take them with them wherever they went. But because Su Yun had hardly paid much attention to these before, she had no impression. What I can think of now are all things that happened a long time ago. After all, I have been in the Chu family for so many years, and I still know a little bit about these wealthy and noble families. Then, will our wedding date coincide with his? Su Yun thought for a while and asked. So what if we bumped into each other? So what if we didn't? He looked at her, took her hand and brought her to his lips and kissed her. My marriage to you is a matter between the two of us. What does it have to do with them, relation? He seemed to really not care about the Si family at all. Since he said this, she followed suit and said, okay, then let's settle things down. Si Yao was a little surprised by her reaction. I thought you would advise me not to get into such a quarrel with my family. You would advise me that no matter what, I am still a member of the family. After all, he had been advised by countless people with similar words before. Growing up, there were always some so-called relatives and friends trying to persuade him, self-righteously enlightening him, telling him that no matter what, blood is thicker than water, no matter what you should also reconcile with your family. No matter what, they are elders and relatives, and you should understand and forgive them. So, he was already prepared. Su Yun would also advise him that the wedding needed blessings from family members, etc., but she didn't, not a word. Why should I advise you? She shrugged and said disapprovingly, I'm not you. I don't know why you have such trouble with your family. However, I believe you have your reasons, and I absolutely is on your side. In this case, I just need to respect your decision. I trust your judgment. Even if you want to stay away from them forever, there must be your reasons. As the saying goes, don't persuade others to do good unless they have suffered. Unless they needle you, you will never know how painful it is. Besides, things in this world are sometimes hard to say. When she was in the most difficult time, it was Si Yao who helped her and accompanied her to solve various problems. However, Chu Zinggao, her uncle who was related by blood, treated her in every way. This kind of frame-up also caused various difficulties for Chu Chen. Even when his grandfather's body was still cold, he caused such a big disturbance. Bloodline. Relatives? In the eyes of some people, nothing can compare to interests. Su Yun's words touched him very much. Yao stared at her. This was the woman he loved. She was the woman he had identified in his heart a long time ago. He really made the right choice. She really understood him best in the world. People. The affairs of the Si family are very complicated and dirty. I will talk to you again when I have the opportunity. He raised his hand and gently stroked her cheek, and he said warmly. His eyes were soft and his voice was calm. He seemed to have calmed down. Su Yun nodded, okay. I'm a little hungry, let's go eat. What do you want to eat? He started the car and turned to look at her. Let's eat hot pot. She thought she was pregnant before, so she didn't dare to eat spicy food, didn't dare to eat cold food, and had various taboos. Now she wants to make up for it. Yun's perfume was almost sold out on the first day it was launched, causing a wave of panic buying. Not only were the online orders sold out within 10 seconds, but there were even long queues at offline counters. For a while, the whole city was discussing this victory perfume, which was rumored to bring good luck to people. If you buy it, your wishes will come true. I don't know if I bought the marketing account or if it was spread out of tune, but in the end it was spread that this perfume became a wishing water, and after buying it, you can make wishes successfully. No matter what the reason is, it is always what capitalists want to see when orders are sold out, as if they have already seen a lot of money and unlimited future. Other than Yoon Jong-chang, Yoon Chuk-yeon is the happiest person, and the celebration party has been prepared in advance. Leave me the largest private room in Lecheon. I won't come home until I'm drunk tonight, Yoon Chuk-yeon said proudly. End of this chapter. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 396. Chapter 396. Too immature. Manager Yoon, you have a high-level meeting tomorrow. Can the celebration party wait until after tomorrow's meeting? This assistant was selected by Yoon Chuk-yeon from among the interns. He mentioned it to Yoon Chuk-seo and the assistant was given to him. He has his own idea, which is to select and promote some people from the interns, and then bring them with him. In this way, they can be regarded as being trained by him. When the government really changes, he will slowly replace these people in important positions. Go up. He still understands the principle that once the emperor is the emperor, there are only one minister. Therefore, he must make preparations in advance, get a few confidants, and get rid of all the old ministers. So, in addition to this assistant, he also identified a few interns and made some small contacts. He was going to have a celebration party now, so he asked the assistant to call these people. What are you waiting for? Are you worried that the trophy you got will fly away? Patting him on the shoulder, Yoon Chuk-yeon said, can't you see that this is a great situation? Let me tell you, as long as the current situation continues, can you believe that this project department will soon become the backbone of the company? Okay, don't be timid. I chose you before because you are a young man like me. We young people should dare to venture, fight, go crazy, and have fun. A few days ago everyone has worked hard, come out and relax tonight, I'll pay for it. Then, seeing that he couldn't change his mind, the assistant hesitated and asked, should we inform Vice President Yoon? And, Manager Luo? Forget about others, but they are also one of the leaders of this project. Yoon Chuk-yeon got this project from Yoon Chuk-seo, and Luo Yuenhang was also the person in charge and the project manager. Kicked into a vice. Everyone knows this, so since it's a celebration now, shouldn't they be invited too? Frowning, Yoon Chuk-yeon suddenly hooked his neck with one hand and pointed at his nose with the other hand. Boy, can you please stop spoiling my fun? I am working on this project from beginning to end alone. Yes, what does it have to do with them? How many times did the man named Luo get the credit for this time? After a pause, he thought for a while and then said, as for Vice President Yoon, she is a woman, and you can't let her go if she goes, so don't tell her. Just the ones from the project department, plus those from the factory. After thinking about it, he smiled mysteriously, I'm bringing our models with me too. Let's have a good time tonight. Since he said this, the assistant couldn't say anything else, so he nodded and said, thank you all, Manager Yoon, in advance. Hey, let's do it, Yoon Chukian waved his hand, feeling very proud. He is now called Manager Yoon, but soon he will be called President Yoon. Have you heard about that idiot? Since he had nothing to do, Luo Yuanhang wandered into Yoon Chugseo's office, sat directly on her desk, and casually poked the fruit on her plate with a fruit fork to eat. You said, what kind of celebration party does he want to hold? Yoon Chugseo frowned, but did not correct him for his inappropriateness. She tilted her head and asked. Raising his eyebrows, Luo Yuanhang said, did you invite me? Yoon Chugseo threw him a slap, and the two of them instantly understood the look in their eyes. I think so. With his arrogant temperament, he felt that this entire project was his alone. In addition, everyone had their own grudges and thoughts, so how could he invite them? Okay, Luo Yuanhang said while eating fruit, people say that unloading the mill kills the donkey, but this guy hasn't even unloaded the mill yet, and he wants to throw away your end. As he spoke, he caught a glimpse of Yoon Chugseo's eyes and stopped in time. Does he feel that he has a sure chance of victory? Don't laugh at him. Do you think you are sure of victory? Bringing the topic back, Yoon Chugseo said, don't blame me for not reminding you. Whether it's the good media or the paparazzi, I don't care what channel it is. Keep an eye on it, don't make any mistakes at the last moment, and do it cleanly, so that you don't get into trouble again. Don't worry, this matter is nothing to worry about, Luo Yuanhang said disapprovingly. Probably because he was almost done eating, he clapped his hands and threw down the fruit fork. That idiot promoted a few new people in the company so arrogantly that he wanted to cultivate his own power. It's so naive and ridiculous. It's rare for him to have such an idea. That's because he knows in his heart that he can't win over the company's old employees. So the most reliable thing is to promote and train a group of new people. Just loyal. Turning over the information in her hand, she said thoughtfully. It can't be said that he has no brains, it can only be said that he is too immature. For those of them who have been used to seeing intrigues in wealthy families since they were born, and have been used to seeing the ups and downs of the business world around their elders since they were young, he is just too immature. So tender. His little tricks, in her opinion, are just kindergarten level. For example, when he was developing perfume, if he was really willing to let Luo Yuanhang intervene and give her guidance, it would be hard to tell if something went wrong. Let them touch it, eager to show off their skills and take all the credit, but they don't know that credit and punishment always complement each other. If you succeed, you will certainly get all the credit, but if you fail, you will also take all the blame. He doesn't understand, of course he doesn't understand. Naturally, Yoon Chugseo would not remind him. Waiting to close the net tomorrow, standing up, Luo Yuanhang finally stood up straight from her table. Just as she was about to speak again, there was a knock on the door. Vice President Yoon, it was her secretary. Come in, she glanced at Luo Yuanhang and said. The secretary came in and saw Luo Yuanhang also there. He lowered his head slightly and walked quickly to Yoon Chugseo's side. He handed over what he was holding and said, here is Manager Yun's reimbursement list. It was sent over by the finance department for you to reapply. Have a look. Yeah, he responded softly, opened the report and read it carefully for a while, and couldn't help but sneered, his expenses are really not small. Yes, the finance department said the same thing, so I'd like to ask you to take a look and see what you have to say. Me? What opinions can I have? Does my dad know? She asked. I know it is true, but... After hesitating for a moment, she didn't say anything further. Yoon Chug-seo also knew in her heart that it was not easy for them to ask about this kind of thing. Anyway, reimbursement was a process, and it only needed to be approved by the finance department. Turning the page with her fingers, she thought for a while and said, "Leave it here for now. Manager Yoon may have a lot of expenses today. If not, we will pay for it together tomorrow. Let's talk about it together tomorrow." Yes, the secretary responded and stepped out. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 397. Chapter 397 The Happiest Day. Night, Lechen Entertainment Club. In this largest nightclub in the city, there are the most high-end private rooms, the most complete facilities, the best services, and the most expensive prices. But this last item is nothing to the current Yoon Chuk-yeon. He booked a large private room and called his so-called confidants over. The table was filled with all kinds of wine bottles, as if he would never return home until he was drunk. Today I invite everyone to hold this celebration party just to relax and cheer everyone up. We have an unlimited future and you have a bright future. In the future, all of our products will be popular and will be sold out. Raising the cup in his hand, Yoon Chuk-yeon said proudly, "Everyone has worked hard these days. Come on, let me toast you all." "Thank you, Manager Yoon," everyone said in unison, raising their heads and drinking together. At this time, someone on the side said, "Hey, why are you still called Manager Yoon? I believe that soon after Manager Yoon, we will change our name to Vice President Yoon, and maybe we will call him President Yoon, ha ha ha." Everyone started laughing. Yoon Chuk-yeon was naturally happy in his heart, but he still wanted to keep calm on his face. "Don't say that. Don't say it so early. It's still early." "Not necessarily, not necessarily." "Why not necessarily?" "Let me tell you, it's definitely a matter of course," another person boasted again. "Manager Yoon has achieved such wonderful results just after taking over the project. Who in the company can do it? Besides, he is the only son of the second vice president, and you will definitely inherit him in the future." Hearing this, Yoon Chuk-yeon felt most comfortable. He smiled and said nothing, just held the wine glass and allowed them to flatter him. However, there are always some people who are not very discerning and question in a low voice, "But doesn't Mr. Yoon have a son?" "Hey," the person next to her bumped into her to prevent her from continuing, "what do you know? Mr. Yoon has been in poor health recently. He hasn't been to the company for who knows how long. If it weren't for the support of the second vice president, maybe there will be some trouble. Besides, that young master is not good at business. How can he be compared with our manager Yoon?" "That's right, you have to take a drink as a penalty. We will all rely on Manager Yoon for support in the future." Amidst the cheers, Yoon Chuk-yeon was satisfied, patted his chest and said, "As long as everyone works hard and works together for the company, I guarantee that you will all benefit from it in the future." After receiving the promise, everyone became happy and the atmosphere became more and more exciting. At this time, the assistant went out to answer the phone and came back. He leaned into his ear and said, "Manager, Miss Yang can't come." "Why, don't you give me face?" He immediately became unhappy. This Miss Yang was the model he specially invited to shoot perfume ads. She is considered a first-class model in China and has also been in some international scenes. With her status, she could take over the perfume ads. It was because he dragged on the relationship and found talents to get it. Now for the celebration party, I specially sent someone to invite her. I wanted to invite the beauty to help everyone and make her look presumptuous. I didn't expect that no one has come yet, but now I get a call saying that I can't come. Isn't this a clear sign of disrespect? The assistant quickly explained, "No, I heard that Ms. Yang is sick, so it's not convenient for her to come." "It's just an excuse," he said displeasedly. "Do you think the price offered is not enough? Ask her how much appearance fee she wants. Also, by the way, remind her that even if the filming is over, she is also obliged to cooperate with the company's publicity and activities, otherwise she can be sued for breach of contract at any time." "That's okay." After listening to his words, the assistant went to contact him again. Yoon Chuk-yeon disagreed, thinking it was just a trick played by celebrities to show off their heirs. To put it bluntly, they just wanted money. As long as the money was in place, they could do whatever they wanted. He sat down and drank while punching. After a few minutes, the assistant came in again. This time he held the phone in front of Yoon Chuk-yeon's eyes and said, "Experience should not be an excuse to refuse. I have told her everything you said, but she sent this." Speaking, he brought the phone closer to his eyes. Yoon Chuk-yeon glanced at it and almost threw the wine glass in his hand. "Hey, what the hell? I said I had an allergy, and I'm in the hospital now. I was afraid you wouldn't believe me, so I took a photo of half my face to show you." Although only half of his face was exposed in the photo, he could see that it was flushed and covered with dense pimples, which looked very scary. No wonder Yoon Chuk-yeon almost threw the wine glass. Take it. It's bad luck." "Show me everything," he said angrily. Okay, if you don't come, don't come. In this case, if you ask someone to send you a fruit basket tomorrow to express condolences, just say it's what I mean. Why don't we cooperate? You can't let others find fault, right?" After thinking about it, he took the bottle and poured wine, and then continued, "No, buy 2 more things, call the media and the like, and take some more photos to show our company's humanistic care. This should be considered quite well done." The assistant responded and went to do it. Naturally, he praised Rainbow Fart again, boasting that he had the demeanor of a general and an overall strategy. He said that this time was the most successful the company had ever seen. Tonight is the happiest day for Yoon Chuk-yeon in more than 20 years. He feels that all the humiliating and shameful years in the past will be buried, and his bright and promising future has just begun. Meanwhile, in the hospital, Yang Maina slowly wiped her face with a cleansing towel and looked left and right in the mirror. There was indeed a little red rash on her face, but it was not as serious as when she showed it to Yoon Chuk-yeon. She lightly touched the red spots with her fingers and her eyes narrowed. "Mina, you have been wrong this time." The person standing beside the hospital bed talking was Yao Ying. "Sister Ying, why do you say such things? What is my relationship with you? If it hadn't been for your support back then, I'm afraid I wouldn't have known where I was. This little thing is nothing." Putting down the mirror, this face was indeed aggrieved. "A few days, but it doesn't matter. That's because you have talent and opportunity, and that's the fate between you and me. I didn't expect that after so many years since I quit the industry, you have become a big star and shine brightly. What a thing as fate," she said with emotion. "If I had not quit the industry and not become a wealthy wife, would things be different today and would I have greater success? But there are no ifs in this world, and no one dares to say that if you do it over again, it will definitely be better than now. But it is reasonable to remember what you lose and toss and turn into the unattainable white moonlight. It's good for you to be like this now. You can enjoy your happiness without worrying about making money like us," Yang Maina said. "Is it good?" Yao Ying smiled bitterly, and slowly sat down on the stool next to her. "At such a young age, I have to think hard and use my brain for the benefit of my children, and now I have to ask for your help." End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 398. Chapter 398. Since I have laid out this situation, this is the truth, and the reason why she is used is also a coincidence. Who told Yoon Chookian to look for top-notch models or celebrities to endorse? His idea was correct. Top-notch models can indeed drive sales, but he ignored the entire budget. If everything fell into place so easily, he would still be needed. Whatever the task is, anyone in the company can pull it off and complete the project. On the one hand, there is a limited budget, and on the other hand, they want to do everything for international big names. The direct result is that all kinds of shrinkage and compression, even the endorsement fees from endorsements, are deducted. He firmly believes that having connections in this society is more important. He firmly believes that the friends he makes are those who can sell face and have connections. Therefore, he briefly checks the resumes of the people introduced by his friends and becomes convinced. I don't doubt whether there will be any problems if the price is lower than the general market price, let alone know that Yang Meina and Yao Ying had an old relationship. Looking at her somewhat sad look, Yang Meina was silent and then asked, "But, can my little allergy really help you?" Of course, holding one of her hands, Yao Ying said, "Remember what we agreed before?" She nodded and said, "This is very simple. The hospital's test report will be out tomorrow. The allergen is perfume. But, do I have to notify some reporters to take pictures? Then a small cry to the media will definitely have an impact." Although Yang Meina had no direct contact with the fights in wealthy families, she had heard about them, but she didn't expect that when they got fierce, they would even destroy her own business. Although Yoon Chookian is responsible for that project, it is still Yoon's industry and Yoon's company's project. When this matter breaks out, it is not only Yoon Chookian's problem, but also the entire Yoon's company. The impact is immeasurable. But she was just being entrusted by someone to do something loyal, not to mention receiving money from her. Naturally, she would do whatever she said. "No need." Yao Ying smiled faintly. "Didn't you reject his invitation?" "Believe it or not, a large number of reporters will naturally come tomorrow. It's just your face, I'm afraid I'm going to feel aggrieved looking at that beautiful face. The beauty is ruined by the red rash at the moment, but it is quite distressing to look at. This is also good, it can easily inspire people. Sympathizers, especially her fans, are bound to be outraged. Group sentiment is the most useful and controllable thing. Once controlled properly, it is the best weapon, and you don't even need to take action yourself." After leaving the hospital, she went straight into a black car in the parking lot. As soon as she got in, the car started. It had obviously been parked there early in the morning, waiting for her. "Is it done?" Luo Yuanhang turned his head and glanced at her sitting in the back seat. Luo Yuanhang looked like he knew everything about the world. "How do you know about my relationship with Mina?" She breathed a sigh of relief, leaned back, and closed her eyes a little tiredly. "Mom, you used to be a movie queen and a popular figure in the entertainment industry. I'm not sure if you know this, Yang Mina, but I'm sure that even if you don't, you will definitely have the channels and connections to get to know her," he said disapprovingly. "If you want to find a relationship, who in this circle has a stronger relationship than you? Okay, why didn't I know you were so glib before?" She frowned, but Luo Yuanhang was right. She did know Yang Meina. Not only did she know her, but she also had a good friendship. Now, after so many years, she didn't expect to be able to use this relationship. "Mom, I don't want to plot against you, but you also know that this matter affects the fate of our mother and son. We are all in the same boat, and of course we have to work together, don't you think?" While driving, Luo Yuanhang said. Moving into the shadow, completely hiding herself in the darkness, Yao Ying sighed. She really never thought that there would be such a day when she and her 2 children would join forces to compete with her husband and the women and children outside her husband. Originally, she just wanted to be a wealthy wife in peace and provide for her daughter. Second, if you find a good husband, you can enjoy your old age in peace. But Yoon Zhongchen wanted to take away such a small wish. He wanted to give this home and everything to the mother and son outside. How could she be willing to do so? I've taken care of Mina's matter for you. Are you sure everything else is fine? Still not reassured, she asked again. Luo Yuanhang, who was driving, didn't take it seriously. Mom, why are you talking to your sister? Don't worry, I have made all the arrangements. When he is at the high-level meeting tomorrow, when he is most proud, he will fall hard. In front of so many shareholders and senior management, such a big accident happened. Don't say that he can't wrap things up. Even if he can wrap things up, don't think about reaching the sky in one step. With a cold smile, he had already planned everything. I think he has been in the business world for a few years and has learned a lot of lessons. It's time to teach others a lesson. That young, yellow-haired boy really thinks he is the prince and is yelling at him. From tomorrow on, let him know what it means to be cold at high places, and what it means to stand higher and fall more miserably. Your sister is also concerned. After thinking for a moment, Yao Ying turned her head and said, remember, you two brothers and sisters are biologically related and were both born to me. You must be of the same mind, do you understand? She couldn't tell, but she was just a little scared. Now that the two of them were working together to deal with outsiders, what about the future? Will they turn against each other for profit? I understand, Mom, I know what's going on. He held the steering wheel with both hands and looked ahead. This incident must be a serious blow to the company, and it will definitely have a big impact. She sighed quietly. From the bottom of her heart, she didn't want to see the Yun family decline, but if she had to hand over all of this to that Chen Guo, she would rather destroy it all with her own hands, so that no one would have a better time. Mom, you don't have to worry about this, Luo Yuanhang said again, since I can lay out this situation, I can finish it. The company will definitely be affected, but the problem will not be too big, so don't worry. At that time, he will be the one who can turn the tide, and his weight in the company will naturally rise. Without the title of descendant of the Yun family, it would be difficult for him to reach the sky in one step like Yun Chuqian. He could only stand firm first and then climb up step by step. Fatty meat has to be eaten bite by bite. He can't eat hot tofu in a hurry, but what he wants is far more. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 399. Chapter 399 is simply outrageous. The wind is light and the clouds are calm. Today is an excellent weather. The sun shines warmly through the window. In the large conference room, almost everyone has arrived, except. How's it going? Yun Zongchen's face didn't look good. After all, he had been waiting here for half an hour, but there was still no sign of him. Can't get through, no one is answering. The secretary shook his head, looking embarrassed. Let people find him, go to where he lives, find him wherever possible, no matter what, find him for me, he roared in a low voice, his anger on the verge of exploding. However, he can't explode now. There are more important things waiting for him to do. Turning around to adjust his mood, he walked into the conference room again. Sorry to keep everyone waiting. Why don't we start now? Aren't you waiting for Manager Yun? Yun Chugzio, who was sitting closest to the main seat, asked casually. Yun Zongchen's face froze, and others asked, that's right. Today is not only a regular high-level meeting, but more importantly, I am listening to Manager Yun report on the results of the new project. It's already 9:30, what's wrong with Manager Yun? Not here yet. What's going on? No, Yun Zhongcheng said quickly, I think I have been working 2 projects recently, so I overslept. Please understand, I have sent someone to call, let's start first, Wait for him to come, just report the results of the project directly. Of course, we have already seen the results, and everyone has a detailed document in their hands. The results are gratifying, the results are gratifying. He smiled. Anyway, the most important thing is to look at performance and profit. This project is very beautiful and successful. Not only does it have huge profit returns, but the most important thing is that it has made a good start. This gives people a sense of hope. I feel that more progress will be made in the future, and it may not be possible to enter the beauty industry across borders. Seeing Huanya monopolizing the market share and reaping such huge profits, he had long been jealous. He has said this, and others should not rush too much. Then let's get started. First, let's summarize the results of the last quarter, and analyze several projects. The other is about experience summary and results reporting. The managers of each branch made reports in turn. The senior executives would point out some opinions while listening. Yoon Jong-cheng didn't care to listen. He was as anxious as an ant on a hot pot and secretly made calls on his mobile phone in private. But over and over again, no one answered. I was worried and angry, and I cursed in my heart, "Little bastard, wait until you come to see if I will skin you." After the last branch manager finished his report, there was still no sign of Yoon Chuk-yeon. The other senior executives looked at each other and then at Yoon Jong-cheng. "Vice President Yoon, look at this. Shall we dismiss the meeting first?" wait a minute, we'll be here soon." Then he turned to the secretary and called, "Xiao Chai, make some cups of coffee for everyone." Because of his face, everyone didn't leave yet, but they already had complaints in their hearts. In the past, when Mr. Yoon was here, it was never like this. There were always very good rules in the company. I still remember that one time, the eldest young master came a little late and was scolded in front of everyone. Later, his full attendance penalty was deducted. It can be said that Mr. Yoon's restraint on his son is stricter than that on ordinary employees. Because of this, the senior executives actually have a pretty good impression of Yoon Choi-yeol. Although this kid probably doesn't have much thought in business, his lack of thought doesn't mean he has no brains. During the time he stayed in the company, he never had any problems. There are few constructive opinions. For example, the current computer system construction was his idea, and he later found someone to do it. There are also several relatively profitable new industry projects in the company, all of which came from his suggestions. Everyone still has an impression, but Mr. Yoon has been in poor health recently and has been hospitalized for a long time. The eldest young master is also missing and has not been to the company for a while. It seems that this is going to change. Just when everyone was impatient to wait, the office door was pushed open with a bang, and Yoon Chuk-yeon appeared at the door panting. His tie hadn't even been tied yet. It was just hanging around his neck. His eyes were straight, looking listless. Seeing him like that, Yoon Jong-cheng felt relieved while feeling very angry. Even though he knew what day it was and how important today's regular meeting was, he was still late, yet he still appeared in front of everyone like this. As he got closer, he could still smell the alcohol that had not completely dissipated from his body. Fortunately, today's report was in his favor. The results of this project alone could offset his minor problems of being late and disheveled. Although there were some flaws, it was better than never coming. "Manager Yoon," he called him in a deep voice. Yoon Jong-cheng walked towards him quickly, but his voice softened a lot. "Look, even if you are too busy and tired from the project recently, you shouldn't be late for so long. Many uncles and seniors are waiting for you. Why don't you hurry over and apologize?" She pushed his shoulder to remind him. Yoon Chuk-yeon seemed to have just come back to his senses, took a deep breath, stood up straight, and bowed. "I'm sorry, I overslept, I was late, I am willing to be punished, and please forgive me, elders. Now that it's here, let's start quickly." Everyone is waiting, one of the shareholders said. This year's perfume division can be said to be the most anticipated and most potential project division we have opened, and the results are indeed very beautiful, so let manager Yoon tell us. Having reached the middle position, Yoon Chuk-yeon put one hand on the table and turned his head to glance at the big screen, feeling a little dizzy. I drank too much last night, and I drank too much without realizing it. After that, I almost fell asleep. When it was dawn, I opened my eyes again and saw that it was too late and there were countless missed calls on my phone. It was really bad. People who were a little closer to him could smell the smell of alcohol on him and subconsciously covered their noses. Yoon Chuk-yeon calmed down, and just as his secretary walked in with a cup of brewed coffee, he quickly picked up one of the cups and drank a large cup. This demeanor made the others frown even more. Unconsciously, Yoon Chuk-yeon only felt that he was the biggest contributor this time. He was here to receive the reward. There was no need to look at the faces of these people. After drinking the coffee, I immediately felt that my head was much clearer. I took a deep breath, cheered up and said, "Now, let me report to you the project results of our perfume division." I believe everyone has already received the report. Our company's perfume was sold out as soon as it was launched, almost out of stock. The sales volume and profit are very gratifying. End of this chapter. Shao's sweet wife, she is doted on. Author, Jin Yet. Chapter 400. Chapter 400. She calls this slander. My next plan is to expand the market, first open up the national market, and then aim to enter the international market. His plan for the future is really wonderful, and he has already initially described a blueprint for the relevant industrial chains and so on. Coming. The senior management looked at the reports and information in their hands and frowned slightly, not looking very happy. "Excuse me," someone raised his hand and interrupted him. "We have only launched the first perfume. Although the response has been good, is manager Yun's plan too aggressive? The perfume market has basically been divided up. Not to mention giants like Huanya, other companies, large and small, have also taken a share of the pie. We have just entered this industry, so should we be more stable? Step by step." Pointing his fingers on the table, as the older generation of managers of the company, from their experience, the pie drawn by Yoon Chuk-yeon was a bit too big for them to dare to swallow. "Uncle Hu, you are a little too careful," Yoon Chuk-yeon said with a smile. "In business, you need to have a fighting spirit. If you dare not fight and dare to fight, how can you win the market? As you said, the perfume market has been almost divided. If we are not braver, how can we seize the food from the tiger's mouth? Moreover, our goal is not just the small piece of domestic cake, we will go global in the future." His eyebrows were beaming, but several senior executives threw the information on the table, lowered their heads and pinched the bridge of their noses. Looks a little displeased. The young people are quite vocal. Although they have made some achievements, the domestic market share cannot be underestimated. They actually think it is a small cake. The more this happens, the more unsafe it feels. Yoon Jong-chang, who was sitting aside, saw something was wrong and said quickly, "I think what manager Yoon means is that he has planned for the next 10 or even 20 years. It can also be said that it is a long-term vision. This is indeed a plan. It's coming step by step, but for now, it's a very good start." He was trying to smooth things over inside. After all, he couldn't offend these old ministers. Yoon Chuk-yeon still needed their help for his rise to power. "That's right, this time our first perfume became an instant hit. This is the best start. This means that we..." Before I finished speaking, there was a knock on the door outside. Dong, dong, dong. Interrupting the meeting inside, there was a slight pause, but the knocking on the door outside continued, and even became more urgent. Yoon Jong-chang was very unhappy and said in a deep voice, "Who is it?" Hearing the reply, someone outside opened the door. It was Yoon Chuk-yeon's assistant, Manager Yoon. I can't see the meeting, get out, Yoon Chuk-yeon scolded with a stern look on his face. I'm sorry, but this matter is urgent. Manager Yoon, can you come out for a moment, he said bravely. If the matter was not urgent, he would not risk being fired by knocking on the door. If you have anything to do, we'll talk about it after the meeting, get out. His assistant did not behave according to the rules. Yoon Chuk-yeon felt very embarrassed and said angrily. Perhaps there is really something important. As a matter of urgency, Manager Yoon, why don't you go and take a look first, Yoon Chuk-yeon, who had been sitting there silently, said. Looking at the other people, and then at the assistant with an anxious look on his face, it seemed like there was something really important. He frowned and said, sorry, let's take a rest. Then he followed the assistant out. What, can't wait until I finish the meeting? Do you know that this will be very important today, he shouted in a low voice. If it weren't for the wrong place, he would have gotten angry. Manager Yoon, I'm sorry. But this matter is really important. Do you still remember that Yang Mena was hospitalized? The assistant said urgently. I know, what's wrong? Didn't I send someone to offer condolences? Why, she's acting like a monster. When the assistant said this, she immediately wondered if Yang Mena was causing trouble. So what if she is a supermodel? The commercials have been shot anyway, and she will not be left with any less of the settlement money. If she really wants to act like a monster, the company has an entire professional legal team to accompany her to the end. No, Yang Mena now says that she was hospitalized because of allergies, and the allergen is. Seeing that he was hesitating and unable to speak, Yoon Chuk-yeon was anxious to go back to continue the meeting, so he couldn't help but kick him. Say what it is. She said that the allergen is our perfume, saying that the perfume contains prohibited ingredients that can cause harm to people's bodies. Finally I finished speaking in one breath. After I finished speaking, I very wisely moved away to avoid being kicked again. What? Yoon Chuk-yeon was furious, she's crazy. How is that possible? Yes, it should be unlikely. The inside story was not very clear yet, and the assistant did not dare to say anything, so he could only echo it. She is calling it slander and lying, he said angrily. Sue her, get me a lawyer to sue her for slander, this unscrupulous woman. Took 2 steps back and forth, glanced at the conference room inside, and his head suddenly became clearer. No, nothing should happen at this moment. If those people knew about this, they might think of him. Stop this matter first and let someone ask the woman what she wants to do. Is she trying to blackmail her? Warn her not to talk nonsense, otherwise she will be left with nothing to eat. Let's put this matter down for the time being, lest it cause a big fuss and end badly. However, the assistant's face was very ugly, and he could even be said to be crying. Manager, it's too late. The media reporters were all there at the time. I believe it will be spread all over the internet by now, and I can't suppress it anymore. Where did the reporter come from? He said angrily. This was premeditated. How could it happen so fast? The assistant said cautiously, you have forgotten that you personally arranged it last night and said that you would invite reporters to take some photos for publicity and express the company's greetings and concern for Miss Yang. Yoon Chuk-yeon. He did say so and made such arrangements, but who could have imagined that such a thing would happen? Now it's like shooting himself in the foot. He originally arranged for media reporters to do positive publicity for him, but he didn't expect that in front of so many people. Yang Mena said that perfume was the allergen that caused her allergies. Now it's better. Well, once the news spreads, you can imagine how big the negative impact will be. He was a little confused for a moment. After all, he had never faced such a thing before, so it was a bit difficult to suddenly think of a solution. First, think of a way to keep things from spreading as much as possible. Also, ask the woman what she wants to do and calm her down. That's more important than anything else. If she can change her story, maybe she can save a little bit. End of this chapter.